So I guess it prompts discovery and it prompts to get intimate to the found object.
Also, I think something about the position of the bench within the royal docks is that sitting at the royal docks is like a real moment for contemplation, for silence and like a moment of peace. And I think we really hope that our bench will provoke that and enable people to sit down and have a quiet moment by the docks.
Earlier this year, the LFA launched the second edition of Pews and Perches, a design competition in collaboration with the Royal Docks team. The competition looked to highlight the positive and transformative impact of small-scale interventions in the public realm, which can provide locals, visitors and Londoners alike with a unique new space to sit, rest and play. We caught up with each of the winning designers to find out the story behind the benches. Here, Ben and Luca tell us the story behind their bench, Afloat.
I am Luca, I'm from Italy and I did my BA studies at the University of Kent.
Yeah, and I'm Ben. I also did my undergrad at University of Kent, which is where me and Luca met. And now we're studying together at the Royal College of Art, and this is our first competition together. So it's interesting to look at like an everyday or ordinary object like a bench and then try to work out what you actually like about it. So the first step was to do that, and we set up a series of things that we think would make you actually want to go to the bench and use it, such as an interesting view or a comfortable bench, a place to rest a coffee, or somewhere to sit alone or with a friend. So then that created a series of parameters which we could then create a design from. And then we had a conversation over the phone after we both read the brief. And I think one of the things that we were most interested in about the outline of the brief was this idea of reusing materials, recycling materials. And I think you suggested using a wooden rowing oar, right?
Yes, so we started to the principle of creating a project that would be able to adapt to one of these recycled and upcycled elements, or it could be adapted to different types. And to contextualize our bench, we decided to use oars.
On the seats of the bench, we've decided to put in these two drawings of rowing boats in plan view. There's one on each plank, so they're sort of sitting within their rowing lanes. And we like the idea that people won't immediately recognise them as being rowing boats, but once they sit at the bench and study a little more, it'll be revealed. We kept the marine theme going throughout the material, so we used wooden rowing oars for the structure of the bench, we used marine plywood for the seat and backrest, and we also painted it in a teal colour.
We named the bench Afloat, retrospectively, once we had completed it.
Yeah, that ended up being this interesting relationship between the heaviness of the plywood pieces, being the seat and the backrest, and the lightness of the oars. And we thought it gave the impression that the bench was almost floating.
Yeah, we really enjoyed how we were able to achieve this dynamic with this relatively low-tech system of clamping the seat in place over the cross doors. We were really interested to analyze objects which are not actively in an architectural discourse, but to introduce them in an architectural background or make them part of that sort of language. And the oars just came really naturally as a solution, and it's quite a simplistic form, but in its own way, it's quite refined.
It was sort of surprising when we thought of it that it hadn't been done before, because as soon as the idea of using the rowing oar came up, it sort of seemed perfect to be used as this structural element within the bench. If you lay it on its edge, it can be used as a structural element, and then if you lay it flat, it can be used as an armrest or a place to place a coffee or something.
It's similar enough to the idea of a bench, the standard of a bench, that when someone would approach the bench, they wouldn't think too much about it, but just upon sitting and resting their hand on the oar, or they would engage only at that point with the bench. So I guess it prompts discovery and it prompts to get intimate to the found object.
Also, I think something about the position of the bench within the royal docks is that sitting at the royal docks is like a real moment for contemplation, for silence and like a moment of peace. And I think we really hope that our bench will provoke that and enable people to sit down and have a quiet moment by the docks.
To see pictures of the installations or to find out more information, head to lfa.london/perches.